Hello everyone, welcome back for another lesson. In this lesson, we will briefly part about cloning, what it is, and the different types of clonings that exist. So what is cloning? It's the reproduction of an individual or a part of an individual or one of its genes to obtain an exact copy. So the point is to obtain an exact copy, whether it's a part or a whole, as a whole. It involves either asexual reproduction or sexual reproduction. So asexual reproduction involves only one parent. Sexual reproduction involves two parents. And here you have the picture of Dolly. Dolly is the first animal that was successfully cloned. So obviously it's a sheep. So she lived several years. She died a little early. She had a lot of arthritis, so she did not live as long as a normal sheep. But nevertheless, it was a successful cloning because she was able to reach adulthood. So that was the first successful cloning of an animal, as I said. All right, so we have what we call artificial cloning and natural cloning. Let's talk about natural cloning first. So it is done without any human intervention. We see this in plants, basically. So there are three types of natural cloning here that I will discuss. The first one is budding. So you have an individual here and a plant, obviously, and that plant will have growths on it. And those growths eventually can separate, can break apart, detach itself, and become a whole individual on its own. Because it detached from the parent plant, it has automatically the same DNA inside its cells. So therefore, it's an identical copy or a clone. The second type of natural cloning is called layering. So in layering, we have roots that develop from a branch that's in contact with the ground. So you have here a common plant that we have in our homes. Some people have in their homes, and it's called a spider plant. So it makes long legs, I'll call them legs, I don't know what the proper word is, and there's a new plant or a part of a plant that grows at the bottom. Now, if this was to touch the ground, it would grow roots in the soil and would become an individual on its own. You can see that in strawberries, for example. Anything that runs on the ground or slightly underground would give you an example of layering. So strawberries would be one of these things. Raspberries, mint, are examples, or any runner that you might have in your flower bed, for example. So those are a good example of layering. Then we have propagation by cutting. Some plants, if parts fall to the ground, will form roots and become an individual all on its own. Because it fell from the parent plant, obviously, again, it has similar, or not similar, but identical DNA. Okay, so some plants have the ability to do that. Now, in the case of layering and propagation by cutting, we as humans also perform layering or propagation by cutting. In that case, because we are involved in the process, it's no longer called natural cloning anymore. It's called artificial plant cloning. So we can take, for example, a piece of basil. So if we take, let's say, the top of the plant, I know this is a carrot, but just to illustrate what I'm saying, let's say you were to cut the top of the plant, keep a few leaves, and put that into water first. It would grow some roots, and you would be able to then plant it, and it would become a new plant, but it will have the same DNA as the original one. So that would be an example of cloning, but human artificial cloning, because humans got involved in the process. Same thing here. You have a carrot. When carrots grow a little hair, these are actually roots. So you could take these roots, put them in water, they'll multiply, and you could plant that and obtain brand new carrots. These carrots, obviously, because the DNA came from this original carrot, these would be identical. They would have exactly the same DNA. Then we have animal cloning. So we talked about Dolly before. It is possible to clone certain animals. With horses, we're able to do it. With cattle, we're able to do it. With sheep. Other animals, such as monkeys, chimpanzees, and whatnot, it hasn't been very successful. You're going to say, why would they try to reproduce chimps, for example? It's for research. It's a very complex topic, which I will not necessarily talk about here, but let's put it this way, it's basically for research. So with animals, we can clone some of them. So what we're going to do is take a cell from, let's say, a bull, from a male. We will extract the DNA from that cell. Then we'll take an egg from a cow. We will remove the entire DNA and replace it by the DNA from the bull. So this DNA, 100% of it, goes into this egg. The egg gets reimplanted inside the cow and will grow and give a calf. So you'll have a natural pregnancy. The difference is, rather than having half the genetic material from the mother and half the genetic material from the father, it's 100% of the genetic material from the father that was inserted into the envelope here, into the egg that goes back in the uterus to produce basically a calf that has exactly the same genetic making as the father. So that would be for animal cloning. And then we have human cloning. So just a quick comment on that. So there's a lot of countries that banned completely human cloning because as I will explain, there's different types of human clonings. So some countries have banned human cloning entirely. What do I mean by that? You cannot produce an individual, nor can you produce tissues coming from a human being. So it can be one or the other. When we talk about human cloning, it could be an entire individual, or it could be some tissues or organs that we would try and grow, so to speak, in order to use that for transplants. So some countries have banned all of it. Some countries have only banned the human being part, so making a baby, for example, that is banned, but they will allow therapeutic cloning. So reproductive cloning, is producing babies that are genetically identical to a chosen person. As I said here, it's prohibited in many countries. Some countries have not legislated on that, so there are no laws. All right, so then we have therapeutic cloning, which is producing human tissues or organs for transplant or grafting. So that way there's no rejection by the person, the recipient. And finally, there is molecular cloning, which is producing multiple copies of a gene to study it. So those are various types of human cloning. So that's the overview for cloning. I hope it was clear. If you have any questions, please don't be shy and reach out. And otherwise, I will see you around for another lesson. And until then, take care.